Hello, we'll do the Inchcape Rock poem by the poet Robert Southey. So, Inchcape is the name of a place. Uh, so, we'll read the poem. No stir in the air, no stir in the sea. The ship was still as she could be. So, uh, here what we see is a description of what is called the doldrums. Doldrums. Doldrums on the sea means there's not a breath of air stirring, and sailing ships, because they have no wind in their sails, are forced to lie on the ocean absolutely still. So once the sea experienced the doldrums, there was no air stirring, and there's nothing stirring or moving in the sea. The ship on the ocean was still as she could be. Her sails from heaven received no motion, her keel was steady in the ocean. So the sails of the sailing ship received no motion, received no impetus from the wind, and her keel or hull was steady in the ocean. Without either sign or sound of the shock, the waves flowed over the Inchcape Rock. So, this place where the ship is near the shore, and near the shore there is a rock which is submerged. Only the tip of the rock protrudes over the waves, and on this day of the doldrums, there was no sign or sound of the waves which flowed over the Inchcape Rock. So little they rose, so little they fell, they did not move the Inchcape bell. So on the Inchcape Rock there was a bell which was placed, but the waves on that day rose so little and fell so little that they did not move the Inchcape bell. The worthy abbot of Aberbrothock had placed that bell on the Inchcape Rock. So nearby, on the shore of that place, there was a place called Aberbrothock, and in Aberbrothock there was an abbey or a church, and the abbot of the church had placed the bell on the Inchcape Rock because he wanted the bell to be a warning sign that sailors were near the Inchcape Rock, and therefore they should avoid the place, because if the ship hit the Inchcape Rock, which was submerged under the water, most of it was underwater, if the ship hit the Inchcape Rock, it would immediately sink. So the abbot of Aberbrothock had placed that bell on the Inchcape Rock out of compassion for the mariners who were in danger. On a buoy in the storm, it floated and swung, and over the waves its warning rung. So the bell was placed on a buoy. A buoy is a uh, floating piece of equipment, and on this buoy, the Inchcape bell was placed. And when there was a storm, the bell rang its warning to any ship which was nearby. When the rock was hit by the surge's swell, the mariners heard the warning bell. So when the rock was hit by the waves of the stormy sea, the mariners or the sailors heard the warning bell of Inchcape, and then they knew the perilous rock and blessed the abbot of Aberbrothock. So then the sailors, when they heard the bell sound, they knew the dangerous or perilous rock was nearby, and because the abbot of Aberbrothock had warned them in such a way, they blessed him. The sun in the heaven was shining gay, all things were joyful on that day. So, next, once the sun was shining in heaven, and it was a joyful day. The seabirds screamed as they wheeled around, and there was joyance in their sound. So the seabirds, like the seagulls near the shore, they screamed in happiness as they went round and round, and the sound of the seagulls was joyful. The buoy of the Inchcape bell was seen, a darker speck on the ocean green. So the buoy of the Inchcape bell was seen, and against the dark green background of the ocean, the Inchcape bell was seen as a darker speck. So Ralph the rover walked his deck and fixed his eye on the darker speck. So there is a sailor who is actually a pirate called Sir Ralph the rover, and he was walking the deck of his ship, and he fixed his eye on the darker speck of the Inchcape bell. He felt the cheering power of spring. It made him whistle, it made him sing. So the spring season inspires Sir Ralph the rover to whistle and sing. His heart was mirthful to excess, but the rover's mirth was wickedness. So the heart of Sir Ralph the rover, the pirate, was full of mirth or joy, and it was excessively happy. But Sir Ralph the rover's happiness, his mind was wicked, and he wanted to do something wicked. His eye was on the Inchcape float. Quoth he, my men, put out the boat and row me to the Inchcape rock, and I'll flay the abbot of Aberbrothock. So Sir Ralph the rover's eye was on the Inchcape buoy or the float, and he said to his men, the other pirates, that they should put out the boat and row him to the Inchcape rock, and he would trouble the abbot of Aberbrothock. The boat is lowered, the boatmen row, and to the Inchcape rock they go. So the sailors on Sir Ralph the rover's ship, the other pirates, lower the boat and row him to the Inchcape rock. Sir Ralph bent over from the boat and he cut the bell from the Inchcape float. So Sir Ralph leaned over from the boat and he cut the bell from the Inchcape float or the Inchcape buoy. Down sank the bell with a gurgling sound, the bubbles rose and burst around. So the bell sank into the sea with a gurgling sound. Gurgling is the sound made by water as it goes down a sink, and the water bubbles rose and burst around the place where it went down. Quoth Sir Ralph, the next who comes to the rock won't bless the abbot of Aberbrothock. So Sir Ralph said that the next sailor, the next ship who comes to the rock won't bless the abbot of Aberbrothock, because in all probability the next ship that comes by will be wrecked on the Inchcape rock. So Ralph the rover sailed away. He scoured the seas for many a day. So Sir Ralph the rover went away, and he sailed over the ocean for many days. And now grown rich with plundered store, he steers his course for Scotland's shore. So now he has plundered many ships on the ocean, he has robbed many ships on the ocean, and he's grown rich, and he steers, or he turns his course for Scotland. So thick a haze overspreads the sky, they cannot see the sun on high. So a thick mist spreads over the sky, and they cannot see the sun which is high in the sky. The wind hath blown a gale all day, and evening it had died away. So throughout the day the wind had blown a storm, but at evening the wind died down. On the deck the rover takes his stand, so dark it is they see no land. So on the deck of the ship Sir Ralph the rover stands, and it's so dark that night that they can see no land. Quoth Sir Ralph, it will be lighter soon, for there is the dawn of the rising moon. So Sir Ralph the rover says that it will be light soon because the moon will rise. Canst hear, said one, the breakers roar, for methinks we should be near the shore. So one of the sailors on Sir Ralph the rover's ship says that he can hear the breakers, that is the sound of the waves hitting the shore. And he continues, now where we are I cannot tell, but I wish we could hear the Inchcape bell. So the sailor says he cannot say for certain where he is, but he thinks that they're near the Inchcape bell, the Inchcape rock. They hear no sound, the swell is strong, though the wind hath fallen, they drift along. So they don't hear a single sound, but the current of the sea is strong, and the current of the water of the sea drags the ship along and it drifts till the vessel strikes with a shivering shock. Oh Christ, it is the Inchcape rock. So Sir Ralph the Rover's ship is drawn onto the Inchcape rock. It strikes the Inchcape rock. The Inchcape rock makes a deep hole in the side of the ship, and all the sailors on the deck of Sir Ralph the Rover's ship are aghast. Sir Ralph the Rover tore his hair. He cursed himself in his despair. So when a ship hits the Inchcape rock, Sir Ralph the Rover tears his hair in despair. Despair is a feeling of fear and discouragement, because his all his wealth will now sink to the bottom of the ocean, and what is more, it is he himself who is responsible for this, because he had cut the bell from the Inchcape float a long time ago, and now he is suffering the consequences of his action. The waves rush in on every side. The ship is sinking beneath the tide. So through the gaping hole in the side of Sir Ralph the Rover's ship, the water flows in and the ship starts to sink. But even in his dying fear, one dreadful sound could the rover hear, a sound as if with the Inchcape bell the devil below was ringing his knell. But even as he is dying by drowning, the Sir Ralph the Rover seems to hear the sound of the Inchcape bell, which is being rung by the devil, who is ringing in the death of Sir Ralph the Rover. So we see that Sir Ralph the Rover suffers the consequences of his own misdeeds and drowns in the ocean. Thank you.